So I am Ricky Patel. I'm an ex-academic and founder and CEO now of Point Science Analytics. So I did a PhD in clinical neuroscience and research in motor neuron disease and dementia, and then stepped away and founded a startup. So Point Science Analytics produce bullet point reports on biotechs. And the main problem here is biotechs are on the rise, but who's breaking them down for investors, life science recruiters, and consultants? And that's what we do, a PhD-backed startup to bring science to the point.
What's the big differences between being a PhD academic and being a founder? If we start with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a founder, you have to zoom out. So the way I would describe it is, as a founder, you look through a telescope at the stars. As a PhD, you look through the microscope at the single cell. And you have such in-depth knowledge about one thing that you actually realize you know nothing else at all. And I say that in a sparse sense, because then when I zoomed out and I started to look through the telescope, there was this like wealth of knowledge and understanding yet to be consumed. So yeah, that's probably the best way I would articulate it.
Generic skill sets that sort of directly can transfer to being a founder. What was that? Oh, you're going to, oh, thank God I have a PhD because this has helped me do this and this.
I think the unrelenting ability to constantly ask why, and the resilience with failure. Now, in terms of knowledge, so it's important to know, when I left academia, I worked in a lab. I came into the founders world. I didn't know what B2B was, B2C, SaaS. So in my mind, in my world, these were protein interactions or gene pathways. So I would have to Google this. And I was like, business to business. I was like, oh my word, okay. So that's not an immunoprecipitation of two proteins and you're pulling a protein, something complex, basically. Well, I started to follow the right people. The sources of information are out there on LinkedIn. And there's great sources of information out there from great people in sales, people who have raised countless amounts of cash in terms of capital for their business, other great founders and other great ex-academics who have moved into the field. So studying that added to the knowledge, but it's still asking why, that quest for more and more knowledge.
LinkedIn for PhDs, haven't you?
Yes, so I started the PhD Pack, which is a group for currently enrolled PhD candidates and those that have graduated with a PhD. And the emphasis was, when I was doing my PhD, who do I turn to outside of academia or other institutes who can support me, who I can ask problems with if I don't feel comfortable talking to my supervisors or even any of my colleagues in the department, but also to understand what lies outside of academia. What careers can I go into as a PhD holder? Like, do I have to be defined by this label of research scientist? And as it's come together, many PhDs have seen that they all face and feel the same problems. It's just when a PhD is a very lonely process, and this kind of breaks the shackles of that loneliness aspect. And it has a community of PhDs that come together and they support each other. And there's various individuals in there. There's people who have just started their PhD and began the journey. There are people in there who have finished their PhD 20 years ago and have several companies, and all are willing to join and wanting to help each other because they've been in that position and they want to break that chain. And that was completely my goal, having been there and felt that.
Do you have to be a PhD to join?
So that one I've had a lot of stick about from a lot of people, and it's important to say yes because of the niche. So it has to be a currently enrolled PhD candidate or somebody who has graduated with their PhD.